The night before the fire, Monica Harris was too tired to notice the smell. It had been there for weeks, a faint, metallic staleness that clung to the stairwell like old secrets. She complained about it twice to the landlord's office, but the woman behind the glass had only nodded without writing a thing down. "We'll get someone out there," she'd said, the same way she always said it. Monica had 2 kids, 2 jobs, and too many bills. She didn't have the luxury of waiting on promises. Her apartment sat on the 3rd floor of the red brick building on 63rd Street and Langley, a structure that had seen better decades. Paint peeled from the hallway walls in tired strips. The elevator hadn't worked since spring, and the radiators banged like they were coughing up ghosts. But it was home for now. That evening, she came in from her shift at the grocery store with her son Jameer, 10 years old and too observant for his own peace, and her daughter Layla, 6, who carried her stuffed panda everywhere like a passport. The hallway smelled faintly of burnt dust. Monica wrinkled her nose. "Mom, it stinks again," Jameer said, his voice muffled through his hoodie. "I know, baby," she sighed. "Probably the boiler acting up again. Go wash your hands before dinner." The heat barely worked. She kept the oven open a crack to warm the kitchen as she fried chicken and checked the homework sheet from Layla's backpack. Outside, the winter wind scraped against the glass like sandpaper. Somewhere down the hall, a neighbor's baby cried, a low, tired wail that echoed through thin walls. By 10:30, both kids were asleep. Monica sat by the window, scrolling her phone in the glow of a lamp that flickered every few minutes. She looked at a text thread with the building group chat. A half-dozen tenants complaining about leaks, rats, and that smell. The last message, from Mr. Wallace in 4B, read, "We should call the news. Maybe they'll listen then." Monica stared at it for a long time before typing. They only listen when something happens. She hit send. Then she turned off the light and prayed tomorrow would be just another tired, ordinary day. It wasn't. The fire began at 2:17 a.m. It started, investigators would later say, in the basement utility room. Faulty wiring that had sparked before. The smoke alarm down there hadn't worked in months. At 2:19, the first curl of smoke slid up through the vents and into the stairwell. It crept beneath doors like a thief. At 2:21, Jameer woke coughing. "Mom," he rasped, shaking her shoulder. "Something's burning." She sat up instantly. The smell was thick now, plastic and oil. She threw off the blanket and ran to the door. When she opened it, a dark wave of smoke rolled in, hot and sour. The hallway lights flickered, then died. "Get your shoes on," she shouted, grabbing her phone, her keys, and the small emergency bag she'd packed months ago but never thought she'd use. Layla was crying, half asleep. Monica wrapped her in a coat and pulled Jameer close. "Stay low, okay? Crawl if you have to." They made it halfway down the corridor before they heard the first scream. From Miss Ruth, the 70-year-old widow in 3D. Her voice was high and cracked. "Help! I can't see." Jameer tugged at his mother's sleeve. "Mom, that's Miss Ruth." Smoke churned through the hallway. Monica could barely see 2 feet ahead. Every instinct screamed run. Get out, but another voice, one that sounded suspiciously like her own mother, cut through it. "You don't leave people behind. Not if you can help it." She turned back. "Stay right here," she told her kids, pushing them toward the stairwell corner. "Cover your mouths, okay? I'll be right back." Mom, no. But she was already moving. She reached 3D by memory, feeling the numbers on the door through the heat. The metal knob burned her palm. She kicked the door once, twice, until the latch cracked. Smoke poured out, dense and choking. "Miss Ruth, it's Monica." The old woman was on the floor, coughing, her thin nightgown smeared with soot. Monica crouched low, pulling her arm over her shoulder. "Come on, we gotta go." Together they crawled, every breath a knife. By the time they reached the stairwell, her lungs burned and her vision tunneled. Jameer was there, eyes wide with terror, clutching his sister. "Go." Monica wheezed. They stumbled down one flight before the stairwell shook. A burst of light below, a roar like a freight train. The fire had reached the second floor. They couldn't go down. Upstairs. Monica gasped. Roof. By the time they reached the top landing, smoke swirled so thick it looked alive. Monica banged on doors. Fire! Wake up! She pounded 5B, 5C, 5D. People shouted inside. A baby wailed. Doors opened. Faces appeared, dazed and terrified. Roof access, she yelled. Follow me. They climbed the final metal ladder. The hatch creaked open, and a rush of cold air slammed against her face. She pulled herself up and helped the others through. 2 mothers, a teen Miss Ruth, her own kids. Below them, flames licked the windows, painting the brick walls orange. Sirens wailed in the distance, small, then closer. The city was finally awake. From the street, the building looked like a candle melting from the inside. Neighbors poured out in robes and coats, pointing upward, shouting names. Monica waved from the roof, coughing, eyes red. She could barely hold Layla now. Her arms trembled from exhaustion. A firefighter's voice boomed through the loudspeaker. Stay where you are! Ladders are coming up. She nodded weakly. Then something snapped below, a crack of collapsing timber. The roof trembled. Mom! Jameer screamed as the edge buckled. Back! She yelled, pulling them toward the center. The ladder reached them just as the far wall gave way. A fireman in heavy gear climbed up, grabbed Layla first, then Jameer, then Miss Ruth. When he reached for Monica, she hesitated, glancing back at the hatch. Wait, she said. There's more on the 4th floor. I heard them. The firefighter shook his head. Ma'am, it's too dangerous. She looked him dead in the eye through the smoke. If it was your kid, would you stop me? He froze, then cursed under his breath. Stay close. They descended back through the hatch into a hell of flame and debris. Heat seared their skin even through their coats. The hallway was a tunnel of smoke. From behind, 4 became a faint banging. Monica covered her mouth and ran. Mr. Wallace. His voice was weak. Doors jammed. She grabbed a metal pipe from the floor, slamming it against the knob until it cracked. The door burst inward. Wallace, mid-50s, half-conscious, lay beside his teenage nephew. Get them! She shouted to the firefighter. Together, they dragged both men toward the stairwell. The structure groaned, a monstrous sound of metal dying. As they reached the ladder again, flames punched through the ceiling. The firefighter shoved her upward first. Go, now. When her feet touched the cold rung of the ladder, she realized her hands were bleeding. She didn't feel it. They reached the ground seconds before the roof collapsed completely. The crowd roared as she stumbled clear, coughing, clutching Jameer and Layla. Paramedics swarmed. Cameras blinked. The building burned like a warning no one had heeded. By dawn, the fire was out. 6 people injured, none dead. The miracle on 63rd Street, the reporters called it. Monica sat on the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, oxygen mask pressed to her face. Her hands shook. Jameer sat beside her, silent, his little sister asleep against her lap. A firefighter knelt beside her, the same one who'd gone back in. His badge read Reynolds. You saved a lot of lives tonight, ma'am. She shook her head. I just did what I had to. Reynolds looked at the ruined building. Should have never gone up that fast. Wiring's ancient. You folks report that before. Monica gave a bitter laugh. For months. The news vans came by sunrise. Reporters asked about heroism. City officials promised a full investigation. The landlord's representative released a statement about unexpected electrical issues. But the tenants knew better. By afternoon, the survivors gathered at the church basement across the street. The Red Cross had brought cots and soup. The smell of smoke still clung to their clothes. Mr. Wallace's arm was bandaged, his voice hoarse. "That fire was no accident," he rasped. "I called about those outlets 3 times." Others nodded. Miss Ruth sat nearby, her frail hands trembling around a cup of tea. "God sent that girl," she said softly. "If it wasn't for Monica, we'd all be gone." Monica sat quietly in the corner, still shivering. "God sent all of us," she murmured. Over the next week, her face was everywhere. Local news, radio, online headlines. Single mother saves neighbors in 63rd Street Inferno. Strangers stopped her on the street to hug her. The mayor's office invited her to a press conference, but fame sat uneasy on her shoulders. When a reporter asked how it felt to be a hero, she said, "Feels like being tired." She didn't want applause. She wanted accountability. When the city held a hearing on housing code enforcement, she showed up with a binder full of tenant complaints and photographs of broken alarms and peeling wires. Her voice shook but didn't break. "We've been invisible," she told the council. "That fire wasn't an accident, it was neglect. And neglect has a body count." Her words made the evening news again. This time, the headline read, "Hero Mother Demands Change." Weeks passed. Investigations opened. The landlord was fined. The building was condemned. Temporary housing vouchers arrived, though slow and tangled in bureaucracy. Monica and her kids moved into a small 2-bedroom on the west side, clean, warm, with working heat and smoke detectors that chirped every morning. She didn't complain. The sound was a blessing. Jameer struggled at first. Nightmares of smoke, loud noises. She found him once sitting on the floor, flashlight in hand, checking under the door for imaginary fumes. She hugged him tight. "It's okay, baby," she whispered. "We're safe now." He looked up. "You weren't scared, Mom. Not even when the roof almost fell." She smiled faintly. "That's what moms do. We get scared later." In spring, the city unveiled new legislation. The 63rd Street Housing Safety Act. Mandatory inspections. Emergency response funding for low-income properties. The mayor called it the Harris Bill, though Monica hadn't asked for that. At the signing ceremony, she stood in a borrowed blazer beside other survivors. Cameras flashed again. She smiled politely, thinking about all the faces who weren't there to see it. Afterward, she walked alone back to the church on 63rd. The burned building was gone now, replaced by a fenced-off lot and a sign that read Future Site of Affordable Housing Redevelopment. She stood there a long time, the wind tugging at her coat. Then she bent down and laid a small bunch of tulips by the chain-link fence. "For what we lost," she whispered, "and for what we learned." Months later, the community transformed the empty lot into a neighborhood garden. Raised beds of tomatoes, peppers, and marigolds. Kids painted murals of firefighters, nurses, and neighbors holding hands. Someone added Monica's face mid-smile, her hair tied back, a halo of orange behind her like flame, turned holy. She hated it at first, but one evening, as the sun set over the tracks, she brought Layla to see it. "Is that you, Mommy?" the girl asked. Monica laughed softly. "That's just a painting, baby." Layla looked closer. "You look brave." Monica crouched beside her. "I was scared the whole time." "But you still helped," Layla said. "That's what brave means." Monica hugged her close, eyes stinging. "Yeah," she whispered. "That's what brave means." A year after the fire, the city held a memorial on the rebuilt lot, now called Harris Gardens. The crowd was large but quiet. The mayor gave a speech about resilience. The fire chief spoke about safety reforms. Then it was Monica's turn. She stepped to the microphone, the same calm in her eyes that had carried her through the smoke. "I didn't light that fire," she began, "but I lived through it, and I learned something. Fire doesn't just destroy buildings. It shows what's already broken." She paused, scanning the crowd, neighbors, firefighters, children holding candles. "That night, when I ran back inside, I didn't think about being brave. I thought about my people, Miss Ruth, Mr. Wallace. Those kids I hear playing every morning. We're all each other's keepers. If we don't look out for one another, no one will." Her voice steadied. "The fire showed us what happens when the city forgets its promises. But it also showed what happens when we remember who we are." Applause rose slowly, then louder, filling the cold evening air. After the ceremony, Monica stayed behind as the crowd thinned. The garden lights flickered on. Soft amber glows against the dark. She ran her fingers along a painted mural of the old building, its windows bright with color instead of flame. Behind her, someone said, "Ms. Harris." It was Chief Reynolds, older now, silver in his hair. He handed her a small plaque wrapped in brown paper. "For your courage," he said. She unwrapped it. It read, "For reminding us that heroes live on every street." Monica smiled. "Thank you, but you know what I really want." "What's that?" "For nobody to have to be a hero just to stay alive in their own home." Reynolds nodded, eyes heavy. "We're working on it." She looked back at the mural, her painted self standing in front of flames, defiant calm. "Keep working," she said. That night, back in their new apartment, she tucked the kids in early. Layla's panda sat between them like a peace treaty. The smoke detector blinked red once, then went still. Monica stood by the window, looking out at the quiet street below. Snow began to fall again, soft and slow. She thought of the night when 63rd Street burned. How fear and faith had collided, how the city had finally looked up and seen them. Her phone buzzed, a message from the tenants group. Someone new had just joined, a mother from another building complaining about faulty alarms. Monica typed back, "Let's meet tomorrow. We know what to do now." She smiled, set the phone down, and whispered a small prayer of thanks. Outside, the city slept under its thin blanket of white. Inside, the lights glowed steady, the air warm and safe. And though the night was quiet, somewhere deep inside her, Monica still heard the faint crackle of fire, not as terror anymore, but as a reminder. Sometimes flames have to rise before people do. Thanks for watching.